Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. This time, we're exploring the wisdom of Saadi of Shiraz.
Saadi, a legend.
Right. And we're focusing specifically on the opening of his Gulistan, the rose garden.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful work.
It is. And just a reminder, this is episode 11 out of 50, where we're using these incredible conversations between Iranian philosophers Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani to really unlock Saadi's secrets.
Secrets is right. I mean, even translated, Saadi's words, they just have this way of, cutting through all the noise.
How do I?
And right from the start, I mean, bam. He's diving into these really heavy themes. You've got thanking God and this idea that obedience brings you closer to the divine. And then, this whole concept that gratitude actually increases God's bounty.
There's so much to unpack. Before we get too far, though, just a quick note. This whole deep dive is based on translations of these conversations, so inevitably some of those really subtle nuances might get a little lost.
Yeah, translations are tricky.
We apologize in advance for any discrepancies.
Can't be helped. Language is like that.
It really is.
Yeah.
But okay, back to Saadi. I'm really curious about that word, obedience. Because Dr. Dinani, he points out that the original Persian taught it isn't about blind submission at all.
That's what's so interesting. It's not about blindly following rules. It's more like Dr. Dinani explains it as recognizing how great God is.
Oh, I see.
And then you're consciously choosing to align yourself with that, like conscious alignment, not following orders, if that makes sense.
I love that.
What do you think, listener? Does that change how you view obedience at all?
It definitely does for me. And then Saadi just seamlessly connects this Tadat idea to Shukr gratitude. Even Shukr is way deeper than we might think.
Yeah, Dr. Dinani really pushes us to see gratitude in a whole new light. Like, he doesn't see it as some fleeting feeling. He actually calls it an intellectual act. It's this choice, a very deliberate choice, to focus on what's good.
Okay, wait, intellectual act. Never thought of gratitude that way.
To be thankful, even when everything is falling apart around you. It's powerful.
Makes me think of that story Dr. Dinani shares about the Sufi master who kept giving thanks, even as everything was, crumbling around him.
Oh, that's a good one. That story just embodies the power of Shukr. The Sufi master, he didn't see hardship as punishment. He saw it as a chance to grow spiritually.
Wow.
It's almost like if you choose to see the world through this lens of gratitude,
Yeah.
your reality actually changes.
It's incredible. I mean, could practicing Shukr really shift our perspective that much? Maybe even influence how things turn out? Makes you think. Have you ever consciously tried shifting to gratitude when things are hard?
You should try it.
Yeah, maybe. It's like Saadi saying, hey, even when things are rough, there's always something to be thankful for. Find it.
He's right. There always is. But then Saadi does this thing he's so good at. He takes these big, complex ideas and brings them down to earth with something as simple as breathing.
Breathing.
I know, right? But he says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, every breath we take, it sustains life, and when it leaves us, it brings joy to the spirit. Who knew breathing could be so profound?
Only Saadi. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. But he's not just talking about breathing for the sake of it, is he? Dr. Dinani points out that Saadi highlights the duality of each breath. Taking in life.
Yes. And releasing what we don't need anymore.
Right.
That's where the metaphors come in. Taking in life, it represents appreciating everything we receive. Releasing, that's about letting go of what's not serving us anymore.
It's beautiful, really. This transforms breathing into a gratitude practice.
Isn't it?
It's like he's saying, pay attention. Each inhale is a gift. Each exhale is letting go. Simple, yet so powerful. A way to be present and appreciative in our everyday lives.
It makes you wonder, what other miracles are we missing right under our noses because we're so busy?
We need to see the world through Saadi's eyes.
We do. And then Dr. Dinani, he goes even deeper. He suggests that language itself, it might be more than just communication. He proposes it's a window to the soul.
The window to the soul. Wow.
Maybe even divinely inspired.
You mean the way we use language, the words we choose, they reveal something deeper about us?
That's the question, isn't it? It's like he's saying language isn't just a neutral tool. It's an expression of, everything inside us. Thoughts, beliefs, values.
Our inner world coming out through words. He even talks about how the building blocks of language, the letters and sounds, can lead to these profound discussions.
They can.
But Dr. Dinani also reminds us that language has a shadow side. He tells that story about a king who uses words carelessly, causing all this chaos and destruction.
Oh, yeah.
It's a reminder that words have power.
Immense power.
And that power could be used for good or bad. Do you remember that story, listener? What struck you about it?
It's a powerful one, and it begs the question, how do we use this gift responsibly, knowing our words can build or destroy?
Dr. Dinani offers some good guidance. He encourages us to be mindful of the impact our words have on ourselves and everyone else.
Think before you speak.
Exactly. Consider the consequences. Speak from the heart. Be sincere.
Saadi's words resonate so deeply because they come from his own life, his experiences, not just empty talk. He lived what he taught.
I love that. He also emphasizes the importance of listening. It's not just about expressing ourselves. It's about truly hearing and understanding other perspectives, even when we disagree.
That's real, though.
Building bridges, not walls.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Larijani throws in this fascinating concept, silence, as a form of language.
Science.
He suggests it can be a deliberate choice, a way of communicating without actually saying anything.
The language of the heart.
Exactly. Communicating on a deeper level. Intuition, empathy, understanding that goes beyond words.
Beautiful.
He even brings up the Sufi mystic, Shams Tabriz, rarely spoke, believed unspoken words held more power. Makes you think sometimes a gesture, a look, maybe just being present can speak louder than words.
What if we paid more attention to that unspoken language, those subtle cues and energy we're sending out all the time?
It circles back to Saadi's point about being present, mindful of each breath, action, word.
Maybe life itself is speaking to us, even in the silence. The question is, are we listening? It really makes you think about all those times when, well, words just fail us. Maybe those are the moments we need to tap into this deeper language, the language of the heart.
I'm also struck by how Dr. Larijani connects all this back to gratitude. He brings in this beautiful hadith, a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh, which one?
It says, "He who does not thank people does not thank God." It's like he's saying that gratitude should extend to everyone who touches our lives in a positive way.
That's beautiful. It's not just thanking God in isolation.
Right.
Our gratitude toward the divine, it should show in how we treat each other, especially those who help us, who contribute to our well-being.
It really is a powerful challenge. How often do we take those contributions for granted? Parents, teachers, friends, even strangers who are kind to us, they all deserve our appreciation.
And Dr. Dinani suggests a subtle shift in focus. Instead of just being thankful for things, maybe we should be thanking specific people.
Oh, interesting.
Acknowledging their effort, expressing gratitude directly to them.
That's a great point. It's recognizing the human connection behind all those blessings. Those individual acts of kindness, generosity. It's what makes life rich and meaningful.
It's so easy to focus on what we're grateful for, but the who is just as important, maybe even more so.
Okay, but back to Saadi for a moment. Why do you think his words still resonate with people today, across cultures, centuries? What's the secret?
I think Dr. Dinani nails it when he says Saadi's language goes beyond mere communication.
It's deeper.
It's a deep understanding of the human soul. He gets the joys, the sorrows, all the complexities of being human.
He's able to articulate those universal truths, the things we all experience, no matter our background or our beliefs.
His words touch our hearts as much as our minds. He speaks to our deepest longings, fears, hopes.
And he does it with such beauty, such eloquence.
It's no wonder his work has lasted. But then Dr. Dinani goes even further. He asks this question that really made me stop and think. He asks, could language itself, could its very existence point to a divine source?
Oh, that's a big one.
He's suggesting that our ability to use language, something that sets us apart from every other species.
It's unique to humans.
Right. Maybe it's a gift from something greater, a sign of our connection to something beyond the material world.
It really makes you think about the power of language. Not just to share information, but to express emotions, to create art, to build entire worlds through words. Could something so fundamental, so human, have just emerged from a purely material process? I don't know. What do you think, listener?
And like Dr. Dinani points out, even the simplest parts of language, the alphabet, the sounds we make.
The building blocks.
Yeah, they can lead to these incredible philosophical conversations.
They can. But of course, as we've been talking about, language isn't always used for good. Dr. Dinani reminds us of that story about the king, the one who uses words so recklessly and causes so much harm.
Yeah, that's a sobering story.
Words can be weapons, just as easily as they can be tools.
They have the power to hurt, to divide, to spread lies, to incite violence.
It brings us back to that question of responsibility. How do we use this incredibly powerful gift of language to build up, not tear down?
How do we make sure our words contribute to a more harmonious, just world?
It's a huge question.
It is. But Dr. Dinani, he offers some practical guidance. First, he says, awareness is key. Being mindful of how our words affect us and everyone around us.
Thinking before we speak.
Exactly. Considering what might happen because of what we say.
It's so easy to just react, to let our emotions take over. But our words, they can have consequences we don't even anticipate. Cultivating awareness, it's about pausing, taking a moment to reflect, and choosing our words carefully.
And he also stresses speaking from the heart with sincerity. You know, Saadi's words, they've resonated for centuries because they were grounded in his own life, his experiences. It wasn't just intellectual grandstanding. It was wisdom born from real understanding and compassion.
Authenticity. That's what matters. Our words have more weight when they match our actions, when we walk the talk. It's about speaking our truth, but also listening with an open heart and mind.
And I love how Dr. Larijani adds this interesting concept, silence as language.
We were talking about that earlier.
Right. He suggests that silence can actually be a deliberate choice, a way of communicating without saying a word, made by the intellect.
He calls it the language of the heart.
Where communication happens on this deeper level, through intuition, through empathy, a shared understanding that transcends words.
It's about being present, attentive, open to receiving messages on multiple levels.
Exactly. And he even brings up the Sufi mystic, Shams Tabriz, who hardly ever spoke, believing that unspoken words were more powerful. Makes you think about all the ways we communicate beyond words, doesn't it? Actions, expressions, even our energy.
Sometimes a simple gesture, a look, even just a touch, they convey more than words ever could. It's a reminder to be aware of our nonverbal communication, to be sensitive to those unspoken messages we're sending and receiving all the time.
It all ties back to Saadi's emphasis on being present, mindful of each breath, each action, each word. It's about paying attention to the subtle details of life, to that language of the heart that speaks beyond words.
And you know what's interesting? We started with Saadi emphasizing gratitude towards God, but Dr. Larijani brings in that beautiful hadith, "He who does not thank people does not thank God." He expands that circle of gratitude to include everyone who has a positive impact on our lives.
That's such a profound insight. Gratitude isn't just some abstract concept or a religious duty.
It's more than that.
It's about recognizing how interconnected life is, appreciating what others do for us, and expressing thanks in concrete ways.
It makes you think about all the people who deserve our gratitude. Parents, teachers, friends, mentors, even strangers who show us kindness and compassion.
They all contribute to the fabric of our lives. Dr. Dinani even suggests a little shift. Instead of just being thankful for things, maybe we should focus on thanking specific people, acknowledge their efforts, express our appreciation to them directly.
That's a good point. It's recognizing the individuals behind all those good things in our lives, the human connection that makes life so rich. It's easy to focus on the what, but the who matters just as much.
Maybe even more. And it reminds us that gratitude isn't passive. It's a practice, a choice we make to focus on the good, to show our appreciation, to cultivate a grateful heart.
I agree. It's not just about feeling grateful. It's about putting those feelings into action. But how do we do that? How do we move beyond just thinking grateful thoughts and actually make it real?
Well, Dr. Larijani has some suggestions. He says, start by noticing the small things. It's easy to miss those everyday blessings,
Right.
simple pleasures that bring us joy.
Like a warm cup of coffee, a beautiful sunset, laughing with a friend.
Exactly. He encourages us to be curious, to approach life with wonder, like a child, to appreciate the everyday miracles that are all around us. It's about changing how we see things,
Yeah,
training ourselves to see the good even when things are tough.
I like that.
And he also suggests expressing gratitude directly to the people who have made a positive difference in our lives. Could be a simple thank you to a coworker, a heartfelt letter to a mentor, or just calling a family member to tell them you appreciate them.
Simple but meaningful.
He emphasizes sincerity, speaking from the heart. It's not about empty words or social conventions. It's about genuine appreciation. I wonder, listener, when was the last time you told someone how much you appreciate them? Someone who really made a difference in your life.
It's a good question.
And he even suggests making gratitude a regular practice.
Like a ritual.
Yeah. Could be keeping a gratitude journal, writing thank you notes, or just taking a few minutes each day to reflect on all the things and people we're grateful for. The important thing is to find what works for you, something that feels natural and sustainable. The more we practice gratitude, the more it becomes a habit, a way of seeing the world that brings more joy, more peace, and deeper connection into our lives.
That's a beautiful thought. It reminds me of something else Dr. Dinani said. that expressing gratitude can actually change our perspective even when we don't feel particularly grateful.
Like, fake it till you make it.
Sort of,
Okay.
but there's actually some science behind it. The more we express gratitude, even when we don't feel it, the more our brains rewire themselves to focus on the positive.
Fascinating.
It's not just about changing our feelings, it's about changing our neural pathways, creating new habits of thought, habits that lead to a more grateful and optimistic outlook.
Like we're training ourselves to see the good, even when things are difficult.
Exactly. It's a powerful practice. And it leads us to another important point, recognizing our limitations. Dr. Larijani emphasizes that knowing what we don't know, what we can't control, that's true intelligence, true humility.
It's humbling to accept that we're not the center of the universe, that there's so much we don't understand, so much beyond our control.
It is. But it's also freeing, isn't it?
It is. It frees us from having to be right all the time, from needing all the answers.
It lets us be okay with uncertainty, to be open to new possibilities, to learn from our mistakes.
And I think that humility is essential for genuine gratitude. When we recognize our limits, we appreciate others more, we're grateful for what we have, and we see how interconnected everything really is.
We're all part of something much bigger.
Right. And that realization can be a source of awe, wonder, and gratitude.
It's like that saying, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Exactly. And that awareness, that humility, it opens us up to the mystery of life, to the beauty of the unknown. It lets us approach life with curiosity, openness, and appreciation for the miracle of being alive.
And that brings us back to Saadi's words about the breath. Such a simple act, but it holds so much wisdom about the cycles of life, the importance of receiving and letting go, and the miracle of being alive right now in this moment.
He's inviting us to find gratitude in the ordinary, to appreciate those simple gifts we often take for granted. And that appreciation, it can transform everything.
It's like he's saying, wake up, pay attention. There's so much to be grateful for, even when things are hard, even when there's uncertainty.
And speaking of challenges, that reminds me of Saadi's incredible use of metaphors. Remember that passage about spring?
Oh, yes. Where he talks about the winds like a frash, a carpet spreader, laying down a vibrant green carpet across the land.
And the clouds, he describes them as a dea, a wet nurse, nurturing the new plants in the earth.
Such beautiful imagery. Who compares clouds to a wet nurse? Only Saadi.
He was a master of weaving those metaphors into his writing, but they weren't just for show, you know?
Right.
Those metaphors, they carry deeper meaning, philosophical insights that change how we see the world.
So with the wind and the carpet of green, it's not just about spring.
It's about renewal, the cycles of life, death, and rebirth.
And the clouds as a wet nurse, nourishing those plants.
It shows how interconnected everything is, that delicate balance of nature, how life sustains life.
It's like he takes these everyday things we might not even notice.
And he reveals their hidden depths, their spiritual meaning.
And that's what makes his work so powerful. He's not telling us what to think.
He's making us think. He's inviting us to contemplate, to reflect, to find our own connections and meanings.
And speaking of connections, something else that struck me was Saadi's focus on personal responsibility. He seems to suggest that true wisdom isn't just about knowledge.
It's about action.
Putting that knowledge into practice.
Dr. Dinani says Saadi often uses stories to illustrate this point, like the story of the king and the pauper. Remember that one?
Oh, of course. The king, he has all the wealth and luxury imaginable, but he's miserable.
And then there's the pauper, who has almost nothing materially, but he's full of joy and contentment.
It's a classic. And Saadi uses that contrast to challenge our ideas about happiness.
He's saying true wealth isn't about what you own. It's about inner peace, contentment, living a good life.
It's such a timely message, especially today. In our world that's so focused on material things and always wanting more, Saadi reminds us that happiness comes from within.
It's a choice. It doesn't depend on our circumstances.
And that choice requires a change in how we see things, letting go of our attachment to material possessions.
And focusing on those inner qualities that bring real fulfillment.
Like gratitude, compassion, forgiveness.
Speaking of which, Dr. Dinani makes an interesting observation about gratitude.
Oh.
He says it's not enough to just feel grateful. We have to express it in concrete ways.
So how do we do that?
He gives some practical advice. He says, start by noticing the small things, those little joys that we often overlook.
A delicious meal, a beautiful sunset, laughing with friends.
Exactly. We need to appreciate those everyday miracles, those simple things that we take for granted.
Train ourselves to see them.
Right. He also encourages us to express our gratitude to those who have touched our lives in positive ways. A heartfelt thank you, a letter, a thoughtful gift. Those gestures can mean so much.
It's acknowledging their impact on our lives.
And finally, he suggests making gratitude part of our daily routine. Keeping a gratitude journal, writing thank you notes, or just taking a moment each day to reflect on what we're grateful for.
Finding a practice that works for us.
Exactly. The key is to make it a habit, a way of life, not just a fleeting feeling.
And as we bring together these threads of Saadi's wisdom, gratitude, language, forgiveness being present, I keep coming back to one central idea.
What's that?
Interconnectedness. Saadi emphasizes it over and over. Whether he's talking about nature, language, or humanity, it all comes down to the fact that we are all connected. And that message is so important, especially in a world that often feels so divided.
Absolutely. That recognition of our shared humanity, it's an antidote to fear, to judgment, to isolation. It opens our hearts to compassion, understanding, and ultimately gratitude.
So well said. And for me, the key takeaway is Saadi's reminder to approach life with wonder and curiosity.
To never stop learning.
To never stop exploring.
To always be open to discovering the beauty that's all around us, even in the most unexpected places.
Beautiful. And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring Saadi's Gulistan, his rose garden. It's filled with treasures. May his wisdom guide you on your journey, and may your lives be filled with gratitude, meaning, and purpose. Until next time, may you find beauty in the everyday and gratitude in the unexpected.